Hello and welcome to episode 75 of Tom's Hirschsprung's podcast. I am delighted to be joined by actor, personal trainer, and big friendly chap, Ollie McFarlane. Ollie, welcome.
Yo, Tom, how are we doing?
I'm absolutely brilliant. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, mate. I'm stoked. I'm in the gym right now, so if you're watching this and you see my teal background, guess what gym I'm in?
Yes, yes. I think we can. Anybody who's been to a gym can
A
probably tell
gym.
you.
Other gyms are available if we're being played on the BBC.
Yes,
So
which we
yeah,
won't.
which we won't be. But wow, it doesn't matter.
Well, again, welcome to the podcast. And again, one thing I forgot to mention in the intro, you do have Hirschsprungs,
I
so that's why
do.
you're here. You're not just
I,
here, just for any reason.
yeah, no, yeah, I'm just here for the bands, really. At the end of the day, no, I do have. Is it? I'm not sure if it's still. I have it, or have I had it? I'm not.
Well,
I don't
this
know if I'm cured. Um,
I would say no, because to me, we had a bit, whether you've got long segment, whether you've got short segment, whatever,
yeah.
we had a bit that wasn't working
Hmm.
that was then taken out.
Hmm.
So we don't get that back. The
That's true.
ganglion cells don't just start
Growing back, it'd be cool
reworking
if it
again,
did. But
or not at the
yeah,
moment anyway.
that's if anyone has 7 million quid invested in that research, that would be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. We'll just regrow our intestines back. Dope. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I have Hirschsprungs then. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've got Hirschsprungs. My name is Ollie, and I have Hirschsprungs. The AA meeting goes well.
Yes.
Um, yeah, totally. Yeah, got Hirschsprungs. Oh,
Fantastic. So with that in mind, would you like to kind of take us from the beginning? Obviously, we've had to when we tell our stories, we have to ask our parents because we
yeah.
were too young to remember what was going on. So when you spoke to your parents, what did they say to you?
Yeah, fab. So this is something we've spoken about before, Tom, but like the weird thing about Hirschsprungs is it's like waking up after an earthquake because you kind of, oh, all this stuff has happened, but you've no memory of the thing that happened itself. And you just kind of wander through this earthquake zone going, oh, that's like that because of and you're kind of figuring out in retrospect what an earthquake is, if that makes sense. So you have the effects of it, but you don't really know what it is. And so yeah, so I was born um, just like everyone else, and
Good, good.
they
That's a good
noticed,
start.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, it was, and then it was good for about I don't know, I think like 12 hours or something, less than that even. And basically, from what I picked up from my parents and things like that. Basically, I was born and they said, "Oh, there's something wrong with this baby," and started being sick with and all that stuff. Now that's got a technical name, the stuff I was being sick with, but I'm no good with technical names. And basically, they went, "Ooh, something's wrong," and so they whisked me off in an ambulance pretty soon after I was born. And I mean, the tragic side of that is like my mum wasn't allowed to come with me, which I don't know if there are any mums out there, but nicking your newborn child off a having just given birth mother is not a wise move. Anyway, I was whisked off, and mum had to stay behind at that hospital. Um, and then I'm not sure. So I know I had a colostomy bag at some point, and my dad talks about having to stick this uh, this kind of adhesive bag on me, which of course in the 90s they didn't have baby sizes, they just had adult sizes. So I had this plastic bag kind of going up from a torso down to the hips, and it would just kind of inflate every now and again, just like that, and then settle back down again. Again, I'm sure that's got a technical name, but I don't know. And then they did some exploratory stuff, and they cut me open a few times, and I now have two I think, are very cool long scars going across my belly. One down and kind of down in the hips, which I think is really common, and then one just below my rib cage as well. So if I get one down the middle, I'll have a six pack permanently, basically, which is the dream. So there we go. Made my job a lot easier.
So if anyone just wants to cut you open, then
Yeah, yeah,
feel
fine.
free.
Highest bidder. Yeah, no, that's a Reddit train I don't want to go down. But
No,
yeah, meet some weirdos. Anyway, yeah,
fantastic. So yeah, so that was kind of the beginning.
hmm
So you have your bag. Um, when are you then, I guess, as a child, aware of I've been diagnosed? You mentioned about sort of being in an earthquake, and I think there's a lot of people with Hirschsprung's who can relate to
yeah,
that because you've suddenly you're told, oh, you've got this thing and it's quite
yeah,
rare.
yeah.
Can you sort of what's your earliest memory of that?
This so great question. I It would be a couple of things. It would, do you know what it would be? It would be kind of being in kindergarten or what do we call it in this country? Reception.
Reception,
And
yeah.
just kind of pooing myself. Like and not it just I always had bowel trouble growing up. And I always was like wetting myself and pooing myself more than everyone else. And kind of people knew me for that in my class. I grew up in this amazing school, which was like it was incredible. I grew up overseas, so I grew up in East Africa. I was born in Belfast, but then grew up in East Africa. And the school I was at was incredible, and they were really accommodating and all that stuff. But I don't know when I became aware that I had Hirschsprung's, but I knew that there was some link between the scars on my tummy and my bowel trouble. And I would go through phases of like constipation and then diarrhea and stuff like that. And we were always on that. I was always trying out different medicines and things to kind of ease it. We looked at my diet for a little while. There was a time where I wasn't allowed cheese, which was a real shame. Um, and of course, then all my classmates were like, "Oh, look at me eating cheese, and you can't eat cheese." And I was like, "Yeah, leave me alone," and all that jazz. So it was kind of that there was not a time that I didn't know something was up. I didn't know much about Hirschsprung's or what Hirschsprung's was or meant, or I thought for a while I'd had an intestine transplant. I remember kind of thinking that was something that had happened to me. And again, nobody told me that. I just thought, oh, maybe it's this. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure my parents would have said, oh, this disease is called Hirschsprung's and it's why the way you are, Ollie. But I'm thinking I'm four, I want to climb a tree. So it's not like I don't know is the honest answer. In fact, it's only been since like discovering your podcast, listening to your podcast, all that kind of stuff, I've really begun, I guess, the education process of what it is that's happened. I know that like the nerves didn't work. My dad's always described it to me as like the nerves along a part of your intestine didn't work, so they needed to chop that bit out and sew it back together. Cool.
Yeah.
That does on an intellectual level. I'm super happy now. Great. I know what happened. Um, but then, but yeah, that's kind of the long-winded answer to that question.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I was thinking about this as I was sort of doing my prep
Mhm,
to do this interview, and I was thinking about because we had a chat beforehand. We had a chat like
mhm.
last week or so, 2 weeks ago, and I came away from that thinking you very much, in terms of the thoughts around Hirschsprung's, remind me of me 15 months ago.
Mhm,
Having never met anyone with Hirschsprung's,
mhm, mhm.
knowing that you have it, but not really knowing, if you said
Yeah.
the word ganglion cells, I'd be like, what? You
What's a
know,
ganglion cell?
yeah, exactly.
Who's
And
she?
then, it's kind of, and that, I mean, it's kind of why I started the podcast, really, but it's trying to educate myself more than, trying to educate everybody else as well.
Yeah.
And actually, what is this and what do I have? And knowing a bit more about
Mhm,
yourself, I guess.
mhm.
I guess that next question would tend to be, at what point did you want to know more? Because there are a lot of people out there who are very much like, okay, I have Hirschsprung's, but I don't really want to know my story. I don't really want to know, too much about it.
Yeah. Good question. I think I'm I'm really happy with the bite-sized version.
Yeah.
If we go back to our analogy about the earthquake, right? There are some people like who'd be in that scenario going, "What is an earthquake? Why does it happen? What's a tectonic plate? What's the movement?" Da, 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 da. I'm more like, "All right, okay, it's cool. There's been an earthquake. We need to find like somewhere to live, right? We need some shelter, we need some food, we need some running water, all that kind of stuff. And so I've just been really pleased with like learning how to deal with what I've got. I've not had too much kind of problems. I'm not been too I'm not really bothered about what Hirschsprung's is in the sense that like I'm just going to crack on with what I've got. Do you know what I mean? It's really interesting, and I'm loving learning about it. And it's like, wow, this is cool. And I remember when you reached out and all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, other people have this. And we'll talk about that later on because I'm sure people listening to this will resound with this, but you just don't really believe that other people have it. And that's not because you're in denial or anything. You've just never met anybody. You've never met anybody with it. You've never had to top off with someone, and they've also got scars, and you're like, oh my god, no way, whoa, that doesn't happen. It's not like you meet someone with blonde hair, like you see them everywhere. But even if you have come into contact with people who have it, it's not something that comes up unless it has to. You know what I mean? I remember like in school, you'd be changing to go swimming or whatever, and everyone would say, "Oh, what your scores?" Duh, 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 duh. But that's because you got your top off and you look different to everybody else, and blah blah. But that happens less and less and less as you get older, right? So you just don't ever meet anybody with it. Um, and so for me, I'm always really happy explaining to people like the bite-sized version, because if you're there in the changing room at school and people going, "What happened to you?" and you're saying, "Well, let me tell you about ganglion cells," it doesn't like it's not. I've just kind of reduced it down to the bite-sized version. All my intestines didn't really work when I was a kid. They had to chop it a bit, sew it up. Let's go swimming. You know, um, that's kind of how I've always dealt with it in my head, really.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right as well. I mean, like again, what do you do when you're, 8, 9, 10?
Yeah,
Somebody says, what the hell's that? What are you supposed to say apart, and also, I mean, how many 8, 9, 10-year-olds actually know, you know, about Hirschsprungs and
hmm
ganglion and
hmm
the various types and what even type of Hirschsprungs you have? Because I
yeah,
know we've mentioned before that when we both knew about Hirschsprungs, we both thought, well, there's one type of Hirschsprungs.
hmm
It's only after speaking to other people that I've then actually thought, well, actually, there's 5 different types and there's different
yeah,
segments that are affected and long segment and short segment and all sorts. But you just think as a kid, I've got Hirschsprungs.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and that's what you kind of I guess that's what you kind of think, really.
yeah, and that is when you do think about it. Like I have spent not long at all of my life thinking about my condition or anything like that. Really, because you're just kind of you're dealing with all the things that normal people are dealing with, so you don't really have time to think about um, what kind of earthquakes do I have. It's not something that you think about on the day to day, and that's for me, that's been actually something that's kind of really great about having Hirschsprungs. At least my type of Hirschsprungs, I haven't had to think about it loads. There've been a few bits and bobs here and there, which we'll get into. But again, those become normal. And it's really easy to normalize it. At least I found it. And yeah, I grew up around a lot of Americans, and they had a lot of kind of don't let anything stop you, go and live your dreams, overcome everything. And so I think that's kind of how I've internalized it. Oh, I've got this thing, but that shouldn't really hold me back from doing anything that I want to do, um, regardless of the impacts it has day to day.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that's why I really wanted you on this show because you're absolutely perfect for what everything this podcast is about. Because that's my philosophy as well. I want to show people that yeah, okay, you might have to have surgeries, and you might have a difficult start here and there, and there might be some issues along the way, but there's so many people out there who do amazing things
Mm-hmm.
whilst having these conditions. It's not to say that they don't go through issues here and there.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't let it stop them, and it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't let it stop you either. I mean, I know in the intro we said you are an actor and personal trainer, so very busy boy.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but
No good. No worries.
in terms of when did the acting bug bite you?
Oh, dude, I'm a middle child, so like straight away, I'm just constantly seeking attention. Just it was that thing of I've got an older brother, I've got a younger brother. How can I stand out? And it is, you know, older brother works in construction, younger brother is a teacher. Like very kind of like jobs. You know what I mean? And I'm going, I want to express myself artistically. And it's I mean, I put it down to being middle child. And also, and I think this is something to do with it, having Hirschsprungs and kind of surviving that whole ordeal as a child. You, I maybe internalize that as I am, I like am special, and because I've been born 5 minutes and I've already overcome something. Do you know what I mean? And I had, I think, yeah, due to the nature of my birth and kind of the chaos around it, growing up with the belief that you're special, and I'm not saying that actors or acting is special. And it's not, but just kind of that thing of like, I deserve to be the center of attention now. Like, I don't think that much anymore, but certainly growing up, I certainly did. Where I was like, I'm the chosen one, because I've survived, and I think there is power in that, right? I mean, you do like take stock of that, like, oh no, dude, I survived, man. Like I'm still here, and I, wasn't even aware of it, and so I could do all these amazing things. And that's, certainly something I'd say to, if you're 10 listening to this Hirschsprung podcast, like you can freaking do it, man, because you've already done so much. Um, I mean, since growing up and being in the real world and all that stuff, my ego has rightly been like taken down several pegs, and that is totally right. But you also have this thing of like, um, yeah, I just sort of grew up believing I was special. Um, and uh, people, for some reason, and I've got a gripe about this now, but for some reason they think actors are special. And so as a kid, I was like, well, I'll do that because I'm special, right? You know? Uh, so there was that. And then, I just found I really enjoyed it and I was good at it. So that's why I stuck at it. And I'm still sticking at it, even in a kind of artistic environment, which is like nails on a chalkboard at the moment. But yeah, that's why basically.
Fantastic. I mean, there are plenty of actors that I've interviewed from this podcast who would very much agree that actors
Mhm.
are special. So
Mhm.
they'll agree with you on that you're all very special
We're very
individuals.
special, and we should be wrapped in bubble wrap and sent to our trailers, and given therapists. Yeah.
And speaking of trainers as well, you are not just an actor.
I'm not just
You
an
are
actor.
also a personal trainer as
I am a
well.
PT.
I guess the two can sort of come hand in hand,
Big time. Yeah.
acting, personal training.
Mhm.
So did they sort of fall together, or did you think, right, I really want to do this now alongside the acting?
Mhm. Yeah. So there's a couple of strands to this. So I've always been really interested in the fitness side of things. Um, my brother swam competitively, sort of at an international level. I was also part of the swimming team, but I hated swimming, and I didn't apply myself, and whatever, whatever. Um, so when we came back to this country in 2010, I was like, all right, I'm going to play rugby. I was really keen on the sport thing, the athletics thing. And I just kind of wanted to be the best at everything sport. Now, I wasn't. That's important for me to mention. I really, really wasn't. I was kind of lots of effort, but no finesse or skill or anything like that. And then when I got into uni and I was doing acting course, I got into aerial work, so flying, silks, trapeze, wall work, stuff like that, which was really really cool because that required a lot of core strength. And I was like, okay, this is like maybe an area that I won't be, I didn't know what my limits were with that, but I just sort of found that I loved it and could fly in the air, and you know that felt awesome. So I've always been really interested in the kind of physical side of things. Got really into physical performance, physical theatre, all that stuff. Also, this is important. I'm 6'5", and that's not me bragging. I'm just a very physical presence in a room, by nature of my birth. My mum's maiden name is Tower. It's a running joke. It's all good. It's all good fun. And so yeah, the kind of physicality of performance, the physicality of sport, I got really into. And then when I graduated to go into graduated with an acting degree, went into the business. Um, Again, I had this kind of, oh, everyone thinks the industry's so tough, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to overcome it and I'm going to be that word special again. And people are going to recognize my talent. I'm going to be whisked off into Hollywood, and that'll be me making millions for the rest of my life. Now, of course, real life is not always like that. It's kind of like that once in a blue moon, if you're there in the right time, I think. So the reality of kind of growing an acting profile, which takes a long time because any individual project takes a long time to develop. Um, for example, you'll shoot a movie and then 2 years later it will come out. And by then you're at a completely different age, stage, place, all that kind of stuff. What happens with that movie is out of your control completely. So you don't know who's watching it. You don't know who is interested in it. You don't know if they're looking at you, whatever, whatever. So I sort of think, oh, this acting thing is going to take time. And, I'm married now. I need to think about where we're going to live for the rest of our lives, what we're going to do, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, I'm still really into the sport thing. When been going to the gym consistently for a few years, really into it. So I decided to get qualified in personal training, and just kind of run that business to see how it went. Because of course I was doing the acting jobs of like working in pubs and all that stuff and hospitality and blah blah. I just kind of thought, oh man, this is a lot of time for not a lot of money, and I kind of hate it. I don't know if you know much about the Great British Public, Tom, but they are something else, let me tell you.
It can
So I
be.
thought, yeah, definitely. So I thought I'll move on from this. Now I did a load of really cool odd jobs in that time. I was a landscaper, tree surgeon. I was a carer. I did all sorts of things. And I thought, let's just get into the personal training thing and build a business. So got into it. And my kind of niche is helping normal people do cool stuff. Like one of my clients is in her 60s and she's running half marathons. Another one of my clients has just gotten like her first 5 pull-ups, stuff like that, which is huge. So, it's just like helping people do the cool things they've always wanted to do. I'm going to be working with someone who wants to get into like handstands and stuff like that, and kind of the background in circus really helps with that. And so it's a really interesting job, and I really like it. And I also really like the PC thing because it was something I could run from my laptop while I was running around doing other things as well, and providing a good service remotely, if that makes sense. And so it worked with the acting thing, because it didn't mean I had to give the acting thing up. It just meant that I could do this as well and really enjoy it and really love it.
No, that's
So yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds brilliant. And they're two very much, as we said before, acting and personal training. They both involve people, and they
yeah,
both involved, to a certain extent, especially the personal training, helping people.
yeah,
And
yeah,
was
big
that
time.
was that always a massive part of your sort of professional working life?
Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, and back then we had things like the Millennium Goals, where we were going to end world poverty by 2015, and there was in the kind of economic boom of the 90s, there seemed to be a real global effort to do things and solve problems and help people and all that stuff. And certainly where I was living in East Africa, my parents were missionaries, so we were always um, that was always kind of in the zeitgeist of like you live your life for other people and help other people and all that stuff. And I think that certainly rubbed off on me in the sense that like, yeah, dude, like there's a lot of people that need help, and if you're in a position to help them, you should, and if you can. Um, and particularly with personal training, like there has been a kind of cultural narrative floating around, particularly when I was growing up at university and all that stuff, where it was like, your body doesn't really matter. It's all about what's inside, and what's inside matters and stuff like that. And that is a really important point sometimes, but we also spend all of our time in our bodies, right? We spend. Oh, there's an alarm going off at work. Don't worry about it. It's a test. I hope. Otherwise, the end of this interview will be really
Yeah.
interesting. And yeah, we live in our bodies all the time, and certainly, like from a Hirschsprung's point of view, my Hirschsprung's has affected my day-to-day life. It's affected my mood sometimes. It's made me feel a certain way when I've eaten certain foods. So like my body really has an impact on who I am as a person, and also being like 6'5", like my physical presence in a room changes things in that room. Not for any better or worse way. It's just like it changes the dynamics in the room. I mean, we could go into kind of like staging and theatre and stuff like that. But where people stand and how people stand and what size they are changes things. It's sort of like your body is a really important thing, and it's an important thing to look after. I mean, we have so many metrics about physical health, helping out with mental health, emotional health, muscle mass health, regulate hormones, things like that. So, particularly to that point about emotional health, it's all that stuff. So, yeah, it's I don't know. The kind of wrap up here is like your body's really important. Take care of it because you will feel better as a person. You know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I think that everybody can agree with that. I mean,
So because you work in sport as well, don't you?
yes,
You tell me. Well, tell me more about that.
yeah. So I worked as a PE teacher for a decade, and now work from home doing sports development stuff. So I'm heavily qualified in everything from, well, cricket's my main thing, but cricket, football. I've got dodgeball
Oh,
qualifications,
come
boxing
on. The
qualifications,
dream.
everything. Kickboxing. I not that I could kickbox to save my life, but I'm technically qualified in it and can teach it.
Amazing.
So
Incredible.
so yeah, I'm all about sport, physical exercise, health,
Hmm hmm
well-being,
hmm
all of
hmm
that stuff.
hmm Yeah, it's from coming back to the Hirschsprung thing, like after taking care of my diet, I was always physically active, but certainly like looking at and being more detailed with my diet and looking after it, I just the world of difference. The world of difference from me now to 5 years ago when I wasn't looking at what I was eating. Look, at the end of the day, if all the things your mum tells you to do, eat your vegetables, don't eat too much junk food, da 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 da. Because like when we do that, it has a for people like us, it has like a much a bigger effect than it would on your average day-to-day person who's smashing a pizza and a kebab on a night out and feeling fine the next day.
Yeah. Yeah,
I envy those people.
it's always going to have some sort of effect on us at some point. Some it affects more than others. And I guess along that line, I know there was something we've discussed before, things like stomach cramps that
Oh yeah,
we can really suffer from as Hirschsprung's folk.
yeah,
I
dude.
know you've got a couple of things you'd like to share.
So many stories. So
Oh,
where do
go
you want to
for it.
start? Okay, right.
We've got the
Hirschsprung's people
time.
will know this. Hirschsprung's people will know this. There is a particular kind of stomach cramp which you'll be. It's always in the most inconvenient place. I was thinking about this. There's maybe been two times it's happened where I'm at home with a toilet right there. Okay, but there's you'll be driving on the motorway. You'll be walking with your in-laws. You'll be in a job interview, and suddenly this very intense pain in your lower abdomen, which feels like a gas chamber just kind of filling up, happens in your lower stomach, and you're like, I don't know if this is a fart. I don't know if this is a poo, but I'm sure as hell not going to just see if it's a fart, you know? And you just be like, oh man. And you're looking at the job interviewer guy, and you're trying to look as normal as possible while being in quite severe pain. Like it's not like, oh, this is a bit uncomfortable. It's like, oh man, I need 5 minutes. And just there's so much pressure on your butthole just to open up, and you got to just squeeze that thing shut and just, hope for the best. Always when I'm driving, it happens. Always when I'm driving, and I've just got, you're just gripping onto the steering wheel, searching desperately for a service station, praying that you get, and it comes in surges. That's the things. I mean, I don't know if this happens to you, but it comes in surges. So it goes on, and then sometimes it like feels like it bubbles away, and then it comes back on, and you're just like counting seconds between surges, and you're seeing that service station mileage kind of tick down from 1 mile to three-quarters of a mile to half a mile to 200 yards or whatever it is. And then you just run out the car, kicking children out the way, whatever. Get into a cubicle. You can't go in that cubicle because that is disgusting. And then you look for another one, and it's carnage. So that is when I said it doesn't really affect my day to day. That is when it does. So you get these kind of intense like surges, and then you get in the toilet, and it is just a fart, and you think, well, that was a lot of fuss over nothing. I could have done that in the car, but
You can't take the chance.
Can't take the chance. You can't do it. You can't do it. I mean, I specifically remember growing up, and it was always like, Ollie, take an extra pair of pants just in case. And that is a policy I've held to for most of my life, just because, just in case. But then, of course, the times when you don't is when the times where it's bad, and it is kind of a sod's law thing. And I'm a big believer in God's sense of humor, and I think that's one of them. Yeah,
But that is right. It does go in, and I don't know if anybody else has. It must be. It can't just be us
message
two.
in, message in. You got to message in. You got to let us
Please,
know. And you'll
this.
know. The thing is, people with Hirschsprungs, if this is a thing that isn't just you and me, Tom,
I hope
they
not.
will know exactly the kind of pain and pressure that we're talking about, and how it just weirdly kind of disappears for a minute. And then it'll come back and it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it goes again, and it builds and builds and builds and goes again. And you're just there. I mean, white knuckling the steering wheel, taking nice deep breaths, doing those like pregnancy breathing exercises to kind of get through it. Um, um,
It is probably the closest we will get to being in labour.
Well, I think that, or either I think that about periods definitely. I remember several conversations with women that are like these stomach cramps. You have no idea what these are like, and you're like, you're right. I do have no idea what these are like, but I do sometimes get stomach cramps, and I know that they're no fun. So yeah, I'm just like, I'll fair enough, but also I don't know how to get myself involved in this conversation. That'll be what kicks off in the comments. Let me tell you.
Yeah, true,
Yeah.
true. If anyone leaves some comments on
You're gonna
YouTube
get
video,
cancelled.
yeah,
Oh, if there's any ladies who have Hirschsprungs and period cramps and want to compare the two, let us know because that'll be interesting
on the pain scale.
on the pain scale. Yeah, definitely. Let us know because I always want
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just driving as well, or whether it's exercise induced. Because there are times for me where I'm
Oh,
about two
really?
miles from home, and I'm kind of running along, and everything's going okay, and then you get those sort of again, it's the waves. It's the
Yeah,
waves that gets you, and
yeah,
and then suddenly you go from a nice gentle 10-minute mile to then 6-minute miles, and
yeah.
you're right, okay. I'm gonna I don't care if my calves are on
I
fire.
know, I know, I
I
know.
am going to run as fast as I can.
And then you end up behind, like when you're on the motorway and there's a traffic warden just like right in front of you, and you're like, whoa, I don't know if I can get away with this because goodness me, stopping would be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. And you think, is
Yikes.
it worth just, putting your foot down and
Hoping for the
going?
best,
It's yeah.
pleading with the
No,
judge.
no, I'm
Um,
I'm absolutely positive. And I really hope it's not just us two.
Doubt it. I mean, this is something you put up recently about is it 1 in 5,000 people have Hirschsprungs?
That's the yeah, I did some sort of really quick maths and just basically typed into Google how many people are in the world, and it says about 8.2 billion. And so the general consensus from everywhere I've seen and everybody I've spoken to is 1 in 5,000. So I just did
Wow,
that maths and comes out as 1.64 million.
wow,
Um, and I just wanted to see people's thoughts. I just wanted to
yeah,
see, you know, do people believe that? Is that underestimate, overestimate? I had some doctors actually reach out to me
yeah.
from Argentina, and they said they believe that it's more an underestimate. They think there's more. Which
Wow.
I mean, it's just an interesting point because I mean, I speak to quite a few. I mean, there are a lot of people like me and you who
Hmm.
only have Hirschsprungs. We're the only people with Hirschsprungs in the family.
Hmm.
But I speak to people who their dad has it, they have it, their son has it, or their daughter has it,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't say it runs through the family, but there has to be a genetic um, strand there somewhere. If
Yeah,
you've got if
I
you've
mean,
got parents who've got it and children who've got it, and I just thought it's just an interesting thing to think about.
yeah, my granddad had Crohn's disease, and I think I mean, again, like I knew when I was growing up, I knew I was different. Like I had these big, very massive scars running across my belly when nobody else did. I knew that was different, but my granddad like had a colostomy bag, and I had heard that I used to have one of those. So I think that helped normalize it in my head. I was like, oh, people have these kind of digestion issues all the time. So that's cool. And I'm just the guy in the class with the scars on his belly. Like that's all right. That's me, mate. No worries. Um, interestingly, I was never really insecure about that, and I think that's credit to like my parents and the school I was in and all that stuff, um, and the friends I had, to be honest. Um, I never felt the only kind of time whenever I move schools or whatever, and then you go to those PE changing rooms and you take the top off, you just be like, oh, here we go, because you knew what was coming, but it was never like I never felt embarrassed by it, or I never felt insecure about it. I mean, on a practical level, like there's nothing I can do about it. You know what I mean? There's no I can't undo these scars. I can't get laser eye surgery to correct it. I can't chop off the warts or the mole or anything like that. I can't get a fake tan to hide it. Like they just exist on me. They're a part of who I am, as well as being something completely foreign. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think there will be a lot of people listening to this who will, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Hirschsprung's thing. I think it's more
yeah,
of a scar slash body confidence thing as well.
yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I I've always quite liked them being there in the sense that they've always meant the time distinct, and I don't see that as a negative. Maybe going back to my inflated ego early on about me being special and all that kind of stuff, but you've always got a story to tell, and you've always got this is what happened to me, and da 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 da, and again, is I don't know. I don't really know how to talk to you about overcoming insecurity with body confidence because I've not really had that problem with my scars. I've had problems with it elsewhere. Like I can tell you about the years as a teenager fretting over this mole. You know what I mean? But like I never the scars were just like, oh, I've got two scars on my belly. That's quite cool. I mean, I think with being a boy as well, like you kind of associate scars with that's kind of cool, you
Yeah, I
know?
got hurt somewhere
Yeah. You should
and
have seen the other
survived.
guy. Yeah. I got stabbed. That was something I did as well at school. I used to come up with different stories. People say,
Yeah,
"What happened to you?" Is about, "Oh, I got attacked by a goat or a shark, or I got stabbed once." And people would be like, "No way!" And you'd be like, "No, it's a joke. I got some surgery when I was a kid." But it's fun. Like it's kind of it's yeah, I've got something different, and I'm a mysterious man with a dark past, and you kind of get to play that game a little bit, and it's again, it's I yeah, it's just kind of cool. I mean, it was interesting. Just going back to the personal training thing. Recently, I did a photo shoot, and what photo shoot is in the personal training kind of bodybuilder world is you get shredded. You'll have seen them on social media. You get shredded down so that you have a six pack and you look ripped and all that kind of stuff. And you get some photos taken. Now, full disclosure, I did these for marketing reasons. Being a personal trainer, my logic is if you're coming to me for personal training because you want to lose some weight, you want to see that I've got you want to see that I've had a six pack before, right?
yeah,
Because you know that I can do it, right? Even if that's not what you want for yourself. So it was all like, right, if you go to Mount Everest base camp, you want someone who's been to the top. Do you know what I mean? You want a Sherpa who's been to the top, 100%. So I was like, great. Well, if I'm going to be a personal trainer, I need to put my money where my mouth is and actually do the steps that I tell everyone else to lose weight, but like do it to the nth degree. So I did these photos, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't get those two lower abs, right? And the reason is because I've got a scar running directly through the middle of one of them, right? So I had the top two abs, the really clear outline of a six pack, but didn't have the bottom two. And so what it created was quite a unique look. And nobody else looks like that. And I think looking at a market of people who want to be like body confident and whatever, like I'm doing it, man. Like correct. There's nothing I can do about these two scars. The way my skin hangs on my belly is nothing to do with me at all. But I can get into this level of conditioning regardless, and just have a good time. Like I enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing that with my body and just like pushing my body to the pushing my body to the limit to sound like PC for a minute, but like
Sounds very PT of you.
very PT. Yeah, you want results? Yeah, 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 exactly.
Work that core.
Work that core, feel the burn. Yeah, totally. All that stuff, all that good stuff from the 90s. Um, but like, you can still do all the things and get all the benefits from doing that kind of thing, even when your body looks slightly different. Um, Nobody ever looked at. I was about to say something really profound, but then realized I only had the first half and not the second half. So we'll just ignore that completely. I was going to say nobody ever looked at a guy with, I don't know, what other people notice about you is so different from what you notice about yourself. Um, like remarkably, remarkably different. Um, and I could have pointed to 12 different areas on my photo shoot where I was like, I'm not happy with that, I'm not happy with that, I'm not happy with that. But when other people see the photos, they always go, wow, that looks amazing. Do you know what I mean? And we get in our own heads so much about what we look like, and but yeah, the more I've done it, it's like actually you're looking really good as a body, as a byproduct of all the other good stuff that we do with exercise and health, fitness, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I know
Yeah,
from that photo shoot that you had, you've done, I think it's 3 Q&As
yeah,
as well from people just presumably messaging you or DMing
yeah,
or
yeah,
sending
yeah.
questions and whatever. What kind of questions can you remember any that they asked?
Yeah, so my things like my favorite things and least favorite things about the process of getting in that condition. My favorite thing was the kind of the control you gain over your body. Now, I'm talking to you. We've both got Hirschsprungs. Control over your body is kind of a myth in the sense that your body does all sorts of things that you're like, why the heck did you do that? But just like dictating to my body when I was hungry, when I was going to eat, what I was going to eat. No, I'm not going to go for that takeaway. No, I'm not going to just have another bit of chocolate. No, I'm not, gaining that control over food because I think I sort of realized that I was very much an impulsive eater. I took a little bit of what you fancy does you good, but like to the nth degree. And like when you're doing that kind of every day, what you end up with is like, oh, how did I get these love handles? You know what I mean? Well, it's the packet of biscuits that you've been eating every tea time, because just one more custard cream is actually quite a lot of food.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed kind of peeling back the curtain on all those kind of little habits that I've formed over the years of just popping in to the takeaway for a bit of fried chicken, whatever, whatever. So I really enjoyed gaining that control. What I really hated was the mental effort of that over a long period of time. And what I really hated was um, you realize how short tempered you are, you realize how impatient you are, you realize how short your fuse is when you are that hungry. And so many like religious traditions have fasting as a part of the spiritual discipline. And I think the reason is because it reveals what's underneath when we're not comfortable and happy and all that kind of stuff. Um, you find out who you really are. You don't like me when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
You find out all that stuff. And so while I didn't enjoy the process of being there, and certainly my wife didn't either, but like I enjoyed going there because I found out a lot about who I am. And next time I'll be better at that because I've been there. So yeah, those are kind of the main takeaways from that process.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's really, really interesting. That kind of circles back to what you said at the start about when you're hungry, it kind of reveals, a lot about you that maybe you didn't know so much
yeah,
before. And
yeah,
and the fasting is a really good point actually as well. And it'd be interesting to know, people who do fast, whether it's for religious reasons or health reasons or
yeah.
whatever, um, as to what they would notice about their mood or
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
certain changes in their life as well, which I
mm-hmm,
think would be really, really interesting.
mm-hmm.
Just while we've got sort of 3 or 4 minutes before we wrap up, in terms of the future for you,
Yeah.
I know we talked a bit about the acting and the personal training and all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things. What would you like for your future?
Ah, a BAFTA or two
Yeah,
would be
sure.
nice.
Go
Yeah, why
for it.
not? Yeah, so I'll tell you what I'm working on currently. I'm working on a play, which looks at kind of the sexual revolution, the kind of petri dish for all the stuff we're seeing going on now, and the kind of relations between the sexes in today's day and age. So I'm working on that play. I've got a movie script to take to a couple of film festivals and try and sell and get that made. I'm going full Matt Damon and just writing my own film to be in because getting cast is really difficult at the minute. And then personal training is just about, I think I'm niching down now to kind of, I don't really want to help people get into photo shoot shape. That's not like where my niche is. I think what I want to do is help people build resilience, build self discipline, build, help them become the kind of people they want to be. The kind of, if you're sitting just scrolling through your phone all day, or if you've got no control over your food, it's like people think, oh, I'm no good with X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, 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 you can become that if you have somebody in your corner motivating you, pushing you along, if you follow the steps they give you, if you just invest in yourself and apply yourself, you can achieve so much. Um, you know, I'm a guy who had my last operation was in 2007, and they had to redo my scar, resize my scars because they were getting too small. And I couldn't walk for a couple of days afterwards because all my kind of ab muscles had been severed, right? So I had no core strength or anything like that. Now I'm personal trainer.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can do anything if you apply yourself. And you don't need to talk to me about that. Watch the Paralympics, watch any documentary about anyone who's achieved anything ever. Um, Even if you've gotten the best start in life, you go to Eton, you go to Oxford, you to Cambridge, you still have to overcome and go do difficult things in order to get to where you want to go, right? And so like anybody can do it. I think that's yeah, I just love all that kind of stuff. I'm helping some clients. They've got a really bad relationship with food and under eating. I'm just helping them eat more food to be more healthy. And other people, they've gone the other way. So I'm helping them make better food decisions. And then other people just really want to smash out 7 pull-ups. So I'm like, great, let me help you do that. And I'm just sort of like, it's it's helping people become the people they want to come and using health and fitness as kind of the foil for that. And then in the meantime, doing my best to win a few BAFTAs. So,
Sure.
that's what's up.
Amazing. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Absolute
Oh,
pleasure to
mate.
have you on. I've had a great time chatting to you.
Mate, Tom, you're a
Just want to
legend.
say thank you so much for coming on. And just very quickly, before I forget, where can people find you, follow you, etc.?
Cool. Yeah. So for all things acting, follow BF Thesp. And then for all things personal training, follow Big Friendly Personal Training. The reason it's Big Friendly Thespian, Big Friendly Personal Training, I'm 6'5" and I've got big ears, so my whole life it was the BFG. And I thought, let's market that baby. And just before we wrap up, Tom, like, thank you for what you're doing. I think you'll remember the first chat that we had. I was buzzing because I didn't know that people. It's like the realization that other people have Hirschsprungs is kind of cool. And so, thank you for doing this podcast. I've been listening. It's so great to do it. So,
Oh,
thank you, bud.
my pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Rock and roll, guys.